Google Ads Strategy.com.
Hello and welcome to the Google Ads Strategy Show, where I answer your questions about Google Ads. My name is Kyle Sullerud, and today I'll be answering the question, what is the display network? So when talking about the display network, I first need to define what a display ad is, because a display ad, that's the type of ad that's going to be showing on the display network. So a display ad is basically a banner ad, is what most people would think of. If I say it's a banner ad, hopefully you have an idea in your mind of what that looks like. Banner ads have been around since way before Google has been around. It's basically just an image ad that appears on a website. So if I'm browsing website A, I might see an ad for website B. I click on the ad, it takes me to website B. Now when you're setting up these display ads in Google, in the Google Ads platform, you can upload these banners directly. So you can create the images or have a designer create them. You get an image file, you upload it directly into the platform. Google also has the ability for you to create responsive display ads. And a responsive display ad is basically where you would just upload an image or multiple images, but the image would not have any text on it. It would just be an image. And then in addition to that, within the Google Ads system, you would add the text. You'd add headline, description. What happens then is Google is going to take those elements, the image and the text that you've added, and depending on where that ad is going to show online, it's going to use parts of what you wrote or maybe most of what you wrote. Sometimes maybe it won't have the image, it'll just have the text that you wrote, and that will be the ad that shows up. Sometimes it'll just have the headline or a shortened version of the headline. Sometimes it'll include the description. It's really going to depend on where that ad is going to show. But the benefit of responsive display ads are that you don't have to create all kinds of different sizes. The system does that for you. That's kind of the point, is that you just upload the basic assets to Google. Their system then takes those and they can rearrange your assets and fit them wherever they need to go. Now, the reason for that is because the places where these display ads are going to show on the display network are varied. There's lots of different formats, lots of different sizes for display ads to actually show. So let's get into the display network. What is the display network? So let's look at this from the perspective of someone who actually owns a website. Let's say I am a blogger. I've been blogging about whatever, my vacations. I'm a travel blogger. Now, I want to start making some money from my travel blog because I have built up a readership. People are coming to my site. I'm getting a lot of traffic. And to motivate me to continue writing this blog, I decide that I want to earn some money from it. A very easy thing for me to do then as a publisher is to put Google Ads on my website. Now, if I'm a publisher, what I'm going to do is sign up for AdSense, and that's going to allow me to put Google Ads on my site. So I sign up for AdSense. I get a code from Google, and I put that onto my travel blog. Okay. Now, there's a specific spot on my blog where I want these ads to show, and there's a certain size that I want them to be. Now, there's not an infinite number of sizes. There are specific sizes that I can choose, but there are a lot of them. So I'm going to put that code on my travel blog for the size that I want it to be. And now what happens is people who are advertising with Google Ads on the display network, their ads can now show on my blog. Okay? How it works then is whenever somebody clicks on that ad, Google is going to split the revenue from that click. Google is going to keep part of it, and the person who actually owns the website, the person who owns the travel blog in this example, takes another part of the revenue. So that's how a blogger or a publisher or a news website is going to make money from this arrangement. And Google has made it so simple, and they've actually have it set up so you can earn a decent revenue. If you're getting a lot of traffic to a website, Google is going to be able to pay you quite a bit for just putting ads on your website. There are lots of advertisers wanting to advertise on Google's display network. So this creates demand, and when people click on those ads, the website publishers make money. So it's a really good balance of supply and demand. I would say the demand is actually greater than the supply, and it works out pretty good for the publishers. Sometimes as advertisers, in my opinion, it's overpriced. It is hard for most advertisers to be successful advertising on the display network. If there were more supply, if there were more websites, more traffic available to show on the display network, then basic principles of supply and demand, our advertising costs would come down, and it would be easier to make a profit. But that aside, let me tell you a little more about the display network. Not only is it going to be websites that are independent sites, lots of major websites too, like different major news corporations. You'll find Google ads on websites like that. Lots of heavily trafficked websites run Google ads. There are also Google display ads on YouTube, which is owned by Google. They have inventory for Google display ads. So sometimes your display ads will show on there. So a lot of the time when you're just browsing the internet, wherever that may be, you're going to see these Google ads. And you can usually tell it's a Google ad. In the top right of the ad, there's a little icon, a little triangle icon. If you hover over it, it'll say ad choices. That tells you that it's a Google ad. Now, do I think it's a good idea to advertise on the display network? Well, that's really going to come down to the type of business that you have, the experience that you have with Google ads. For the most part, no, I don't think it's a good idea to advertise on the display network. You need a really well-oiled machine. You need to have your ads, your messaging, your product really dialed in for the display network to work, because otherwise it's just too expensive. Now, there's an option when you're setting up a search campaign. Google tries to get you to add the display network to this. Okay, it'll give you the option to expand your reach by showing ads to relevant customers as they browse sites, videos, and apps across the internet. And yes, I just read that. That's exactly what Google says as you're setting up a campaign. And then there is a checkbox to include Google Display Network. And I think that's why it's overpriced, because too many advertisers check that box without really knowing what they're doing. And they end up spending money on the display network, which drives the costs up. So my recommendation is not to check that box. if you're going to advertise on the display network, you should have a separate campaign that's completely separate from your search campaign, so you can really track it and see how it's working. But keep in mind, this traffic, they never intended to come to your website. That's why it's hard to make it work. People who are browsing another website, they may see your ad, they have some interest in what you're offering. A lot of the time, they just click the ad by mistake and leave right away. But you really need your messaging dialed in order to convert that type of traffic to paying customers where you can actually make a profit. One thing that most people should be doing with the display network is remarketing ads. Okay, in that case, it is pretty cost effective because you're just putting ads in front of people who have already been to your website. But most of the time, I'd recommend staying away from the display network unless you really know what you're doing, or you really want to invest some time and money in testing, or you find someone who really knows what they're doing, who can help you. And even then, I'd be very cautious. I wouldn't throw too much money at the display network until you figure out it's going to work for your business. That's it for today's episode. If you have a question you'd like me to answer, go to googleadsstrategy.com and you can ask it there. And I will talk to you later.